Welcome to the Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seamer interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the Apartment Guy, Tate Seamer.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Apartment Guys. And yeah, I just love doing this episode with Rusty Pollard that we just got done recording. Rusty is a buddy of mine from Utah. We're both from Utah, and it's kind of rare, actually, that we have local talent, if you will, on the show. We have so many great guests from all over the place to have on, and there's awesome people here in Utah. So I'm going to start featuring more Utah-based guests. And Rusty is an exciting example of transferring from a W-2 employment situation to financial freedom, full-time real estate investing, replaced his income with passive income through his rental properties that he's been working on and acquiring. And he is up to big stuff. His big why is massive social impact. That's what he's all about. And he got his inspiration for apartment investing from a mission trip that he was on. And he got to visit with one of the missionaries who basically was able to be a full-time missionary due to their apartment income and through their passive investing, basically. So cool. And Rusty caught that vision and basically has executed on it and has achieved the dream like that we talk about every week here. So again, transferring from employment to financial freedom, making that happen is what this show is about in general and by large. We try to create that vision and support that vision in you. And speaking of that, I do have an ebook that is downloadable. It's called FIRE, which stands for Financially Independent Retire Early via Apartment Investing. And it's on our landing page, which is www.investwithgreenlight.com. Go to that page and download the book, Catch a Vision for Financial Freedom. What does that look like to you? Like, what does that allow you to do? What does having all your bills, all your savings allow you to do? Like having it all paid for. What's that look like? Start dreaming big. Like, what beach are you laying on? Like, you know, where are you headed on that plane, that private jet? Like, or whatever it looks like, you know, what service, what charity are you writing a nice big check to? Who are you helping start a business? Like, how cool would that be to like finance somebody's startup? Wouldn't that be awesome? I love that idea. So anyway, without further ado, let's just jump into it with Rusty. I hope you really get a lot out of this. Really enjoyed the camaraderie with Rusty. It's just fun to hang out with a buddy and to talk high level stuff. So hope you get a lot out of this. Enjoy. Welcome everybody back. Another episode of the Apartment Guys coming at you. And today it's Dude Fest at the Apartment Guys. I'm hanging out with my buddy, Rusty Pollard, who's here in the sunny, hot state of Utah with me. And we are talking about all things apartments today. Rusty's a fellow apartment investor and real estate entrepreneur, and really stoked to have you on, Rusty.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Tate.
Yeah, welcome. So yeah, like I was saying, Rusty's a multifamily investor who focuses on multifamily and commercial value add and new build projects. He built his portfolio while working a W-2 job. Man, we've had a lot of these stories here recently on the podcast, and it's so cool. I love this. So you built your portfolio working a W-2 job, but now you're investing full time and building, and you're also building new build using partnerships and syndication. So you're out of W-2 completely, Rusty, right?
That's right. For the last 18 months or so.
Exciting. That's so
It's been good.
Yeah. I remember, when you and I had lunch earlier in the year or at the end of last year, I guess, somewhere in there, that you were really gearing it or really settling into being a full-time investor and taking on that lifestyle. It sounds like you're up to some really amazing things, and we'll talk about that. But before we get started, share with the listeners a little bit about you in your background. Kind of give us a little color into how where you're from, Rusty, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Tate.
Yeah.
Excited to be here today. I'm originally from Colorado, and so love the mountains. That's part of the reason why we're here in Utah, is just because of the mountains, and ended up between the families. You know how that works.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be an investor, and I always saw myself, owning real estate at some point, and eventually having that as my income growing up. But I never really caught the vision of multifamily until I had actually gotten started investing. And I met some of these bigger guys doing big things. It's like, how are you doing this? Mm-hmm. And, they said, well, I'm able to do these awesome things, philanthropic endeavors or mission trips for their church or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I'm able to do these things because I have apartments. And that was a mindset shift for me, because I want to do big things like that. And I obviously want to provide well for my family as well. So multifamily became the thing for me. So started out kind of in the single family realm, shifted into multifamily, and now we're adding some commercial assets to that portfolio as well.
Take me back a second. So who was it that really gave you that mindset shift that apartments, multifamily was where it was at?
Yeah, so I can think of two conversations that I had. One, he was a leader of a church here. I was actually on a mission trip, and he and his wife had traveled around and helped with a lot of different mission efforts, right? And they had been doing it for years, and they don't get paid by the church. They're just doing it to help and do good things, right? Mm. And I had the opportunity to be one-on-one with them. And again, I just asked, I was like, how are you able to do all of these things? And, they were still pretty young, and they said, we've got a couple apartment buildings, and that's changed our life and has made it possible to do so much more. Yeah. The second conversation I had was actually my wife's uncle, and, he's an entrepreneur and has his hand in a bunch of different kinds of businesses, but one of which is multifamily, different real estate investments and whatnot. And he's able to, build hospitals in the mountains of Guatemala, and trade schools for natives, and all these things, and providing such wonderful opportunities for people that wouldn't have any kind of opportunity like that without someone like that coming in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, that was just a huge mindset shift for me. It changed my perspective of, yes, take care of my family, do good things for them, but then your responsibility is to give back and to provide more for greater society. So that's my goal, right? Is to take care of my family and then go do big things. Yeah.
So would you say that's like your big why when that question comes up? That's where it's at for you?
Yeah, it is for sure. I mean, I've got like an income goal of what I think is more than reasonable for my family. And then beyond that, it's all about what I call massive social impact. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I use that acronym in one of my entities. All of my entity names are named after things that I really believe in, right? Properties elevated, massive social impact, dignified properties, that kind of stuff is just really injecting my values into what I do every day.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. I love it. That's so cool. That's, I think we all like to think that our big why is at least includes, charitable, philanthropic
Sure.
aspects. And I know for me, part of a huge part of my why is the ability and the expertise and the experience to coach people at a really high level to have really high levels of success. And the more that I do this, the more I want to bring people along from kind of where you were when you first had those initial conversations. And that's what I want this podcast to do every week, is to just plant seeds for folks that, and to make those mindset shifts, or at least plant the seed of a mindset shift that you can do this. I say it every week, you can do this. Anybody listening right now, especially if you're listening, like that in and of itself says an awful lot about you. It says that you're, number one, you're looking into a really good niche. Like this, you're not in the bigger pockets world anymore. That's focused on duplexes and single family and that sort of thing. You're in the multifamily niche if you're listening to the Apartment Guys, and you're committed to yourself education and personal development, because
that's right.
That's what we do here. And so congratulations to you already for being in the right place, the right time. And Rusty's such a great example of what's possible through this activity and through this multifamily space. And so, it's super exciting to have you and to get in your world. Cool, man. So kind of help me with what you got going on now. You and I were talking before we started recording a little bit about current efforts and focus and direction. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So as you know, Tate, this multifamily business is all about having the right people around you. You've got to have the right team on board to make these bigger projects happen. And so, since I left the W-2 world, a lot of my focus has been about surrounding myself with those right people. Whether they're local or somewhere across the states, it doesn't really matter. In fact, a lot of my investing is remote, and the bigger projects often are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so just getting around the right people, spending time shifting your mindset, allowing yourself to take on these bigger projects and believing in yourself that you can do them. That's a lot of work to get there for some of us. But we've got some really good projects in the works right now. We are finishing up negotiations on a 200 unit project up in Eastern Washington. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have some mixed use space with that as well. Mm-hmm. And so we're really excited about that. We've got some light industrial commercial type projects down here in Utah. And then, we've got some stuff going on in Alabama and Kansas City as well. So a lot of projects in the works right now. And like I said, it's all about having the right team to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and talk about your team. What's your team look like?
Yeah, so it depends on the project, right? I've got 3 different people that I do almost all of my projects with. We will all bring our projects into a greater pile together, and we'll figure out the best ones for us as a team to take on and focus on those. So we don't get spread too thin. And I met almost all of them, actually, all of them I met just in like local meetups or local social events and stuff for real estate investors. So if you're not going to those, you really need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Big takeaway there, guys. Most cities now, even small cities and big towns, have real estate investor association meetings and or meetup groups galore. And just because there's a lot of them doesn't mean that they're not uber powerful and super important. And if you're missing them, you really are missing something. You're missing a really big opportunity. And one of the beautiful things that COVID's done is it's forced us as facilitators. I have a Meetup group that meets monthly, and it really forced us to figure out how to do this virtual thing, how to include everybody. So our little Salt Lake City multifamily Meetup group now is like a national group because it's virtual, it's on Zoom. And now we're trying to integrate back into doing it in person and on Zoom. That's like the next frontier, right? But yeah, it's so key, and growing your influence through those networks is massive. And what you want to be thinking about is what value can you bring to the network, and what contribution can you make, and in our group, I don't know about yours, Rusty, but we have a attendance list where you get everybody's email address and phone number and contact info and what they're interested in. And like right there, boom, those are like, that's gold. That list right there is gold. And if you can bring something valuable, like a quick, 2-minute, 3-minute video, something that you're an expert in, and email that to every single person that attended your meeting or that meeting, and keep doing stuff like that. Like, that's one way of getting going. Let me ask you this, on a kind of a similar note, what kind of role did social media play for you in developing your team and your network, if any?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say my social media has more been outreach for our passive partners, right? So
okay. Yep.
People around you want to see what you're doing, not just in your business, but in like your family life. Like, what's your family even look like? Because as you know, Tate, people like to do business with other people that they know, like, and trust, you know, and that's what it's all about. So showing that you're a real person, that you have real values and what you value is so valuable and will take you so far. I'm part of a couple different masterminds, and one of them, the leader of that talks about how social media is the 8th wonder of the world, right? And the reach and the power that you can have with that, to produce, not to consume. And I really believe in that. He challenged us to do like a 30-day Facebook Live thing, and I didn't do super good at it. I probably got 12 or 15 of them in, and it was just amazing at the response that I got on that. People that I used to work with in my W-2 jobs were reaching out. They're like, "Wow, you're doing some pretty sweet stuff. Like, I'm in on the next project or whatever." It's just really amazing like that. So social media is a very powerful tool for you to use, and I wouldn't ignore it if I were you.
Yeah, I think one of the most overlooked things in this business is, like, you want every single person that you know and can reach to know what you're looking for, right? And that you're a buyer, right? So, we are at Greenlight, and you, Rusty, you guys, your team, we're all going after these commercial multifamily assets, and the larger the scale, the better. At least that from our perspective. And when you're doing that, you basically really need to. I just lost my train of thought, but you really need to be like dialed in, right? And when you're going after scale in particular, and the economies of scale, the exponential impact of good moves and bad moves is felt, and can be pretty profound. But I know the guru of whom you speak Said the eighth wonder of the world. He's been a guest on the podcast.
No, he's great, Tim. Yeah.
We love Tim, and I agree. I do my best with social media, with the podcast and with some videos, short video clips here and there. I think that, I kind of go Gary V on this whole subject. I think you can't do too much, right? And people want to, like you just said, people want to hear from you. They want to know what your family looks like. They want to know what you're doing for fun. That's what they really care about, to be honest. And they want to see, they love when you walk them through your latest project or take them to your latest multifamily acquisition or something that you're doing due diligence on, or something that you're thinking about doing. Like, people want to see all that stuff too. But like you said, Rusty, they want to know, like, and trust you. And that's really the game. And so, what I recommend to people is start with maybe like a 60-40 mix, 60% business, 40% personal, maybe 50-50, whatever kind of feels right to you. Some people would say that you want to do more personal than business. And I'm sure that there's research on what's most effective here, but I think one of the things that's really attractive to people in general about other people is passion, right? So, like, whatever it is you're passionate about, if it's seriously, like, if it's collecting seashells or baking artisan bread or whatever it is, like that, if you're passionate about it and you're super, super interested in it and you want to share and educate other people about it, like, other people will be really into it too. And that's authentic, right? That's like getting to share who you are authentically with the world. And, no matter what walk of life you're in, what business you're in, but I think especially if you're an entrepreneur, and especially if you're an entrepreneur who is working on influence and reaching out and growing the network and potentially courting investors from the network, like all that, you want to be really diligent and working that hard. And the social media thing it's free, start with that. Like, start with the fact that it's totally free.
That's right.
It has such a massive impact.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that I'm someone that likes to, overshare my personal life, or someone that's necessarily great on a microphone or a video or anything like that. But that doesn't matter. We're all in different places, and people just want to share the journey with you. And a lot of people really are interested in what you're doing, and they want to see it. So it's been great for us.
Yeah. And look, if I can do a podcast with as much as I stammer and say and like all that stuff, like, you can do short video clips, little selfie videos, like, people eat that stuff up. They love it. And especially in the world of business, right? Like, if you have something unique and something that's going to move the needle for somebody else, or instill an idea that could be profitable or save somebody a whole lot of headache or whatever it is, like, that's gold right there. And the socials will eat that stuff up, as they say.
That's right.
That's awesome stuff. So cool. So Rusty, you are in a number of different states, and you're doing a few different types of projects. We are as well. We're in Columbus, Ohio, and Oklahoma City right now, and working those two markets primarily. How have you gone about picking where you're investing? Number one. Number two, are you picking your investments from a market first perspective or more from a deal first perspective, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I will say I definitely have, 5 to 10 markets that I really like, and I will look heavily in those markets, right? But if I do get a different deal that comes across my desk, the first step beyond like, is this a deal or not, is, what does the local market look like? What's the size of the MSA? What's the average income for that direct area? What do the employers look like, right? Because I've lived up in Seattle and worked for, big giant companies. And if a company leaves a smaller area, let's say in the Midwest or whatever, if it's a one horse town, that would be a massive impact. So you really need to look at the local economy and kind of, make sure that works and that fits your criteria. In fact, you mentioned this whole criteria. I've got a handout that I always share when there's a new investor that I'm working with that either wants to get started investing on their own or investing in other people's projects. I have it's an investment criteria worksheet, essentially, that I hand to them and then give them a link for a video that I run them through that, just so that they know what's in their box and what's outside their box. I'm sure you believe in, having that some sort of a definition around your own personal criteria.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so key to know yourself. And whether you're a passive investor or an active investor, you need to know your deal criteria, your risk tolerance, the elements of cash flow that you're looking for versus wealth creation. The deals vary quite a bit, asset class, area class, all that stuff. And whether it's a value add play or a momentum play or a management play, or, it's you do want to know yourself. And Rusty's worksheet is a great way of doing that, of really getting out on paper what it is you're looking for, how you want to see things go, whether you want to be, I'm assuming, is it mainly for your passive investors that this worksheet's for? Is it for anyone?
It fits well for people looking to just get started in any kind of investing, just so they can understand what they're doing. I built it for kind of the beginner investor. It also fits very well for a passive investor as well, just so they can, like I said, define that box, what's in, what's out.
So how would a listener get a copy of that from you?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share that. Probably the easiest way is just to go to my website, propertieselevated.com, and then sign up for our little mailing list. And I'll be happy to send you a copy of that, as well as the link for the video, so you can kind of run through step by step on how to define your own criteria.
Propertieselevated.com, everybody. And I'm assuming that people can get on your investor list there if they want to find out about upcoming deals. And I know you've got a couple of new build projects that are still in some early stages that you're going to be putting together some capital raises for, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yep. We'll be sharing some information as we go along with that as well. So
yeah. Okay. Perfect. So listeners, get on Rusty's list, get on my list, there's a lot of good syndicators. Chris Roberts is amazing. He's a good friend who I trust and would invest in myself. And there's, Sean Thompson's a great one. There's a lot of really great syndicators out there, and there's a lot of syndicators with different levels of experience too. So there's a lot of really good questions to ask about who you're investing with, and a lot of things that you're going to want to know about who you're investing with. And ultimately that's what you really want to vet, is the sponsor, the syndicator that you're investing with. The deal is, if, just to a certain degree, you want to know that syndicator that you know, like, and trust being the biggest part of this, has vetted that deal, believes in it, and has really torn it apart and has discovered what there needs to be discovered about it. Of course, you want to educate yourself on the deal and learn everything that you possibly can. But just know that you don't have to have the level of expertise to know and understand every aspect of it. No, assuming that you have chosen well with a very good, and you're with a really good sponsor, syndicator. Did you say that's true, Rusty?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think finding the right team, whoever it is step number one for sure, and the deal comes second. And also, you have to have that certain level of trust with that team to know that they're getting you into the right deals as well.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Yeah.
And I would say same thing goes with your team for like take your immediate team for taking down these projects. You're probably not an expert in every aspect of it, right? But you bring in the right people to focus on those parts that you aren't a specialist.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm not a roofer. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a plumber.
That's right.
And I also am not an attorney. So there's physical due diligence you do on deals. There's legal and administrative due diligence that you do on, you do your lease audits and lease reviews and you balance profit and loss statements and all that stuff. And look, at one point I wasn't an expert in any of it.
Right.
And you learn that this is, and we say it all the time, that this is a team sport, and that anything that you don't have yourself in the way of a quality that's needed to get the job done, get the deal done, is available in a partner. And one of the smartest things that my partner Carl and I ever did on a deal was bring in a very experienced partner who has a lot of assets here in Salt Lake City and who has a lot of experience. And we brought him in to make sure that we didn't do anything dumb on our first somewhat big deal. And then we needed a little bit of money to kind of round out our capital raise. So he came in with that and became more of a partner, more of a major partner in the deal. And now we've done many deals with him and are working on others. And it's an incredibly symbiotic relationship. He loves us, we love him, and so all is well. And it's allowed us to do a lot of these deals that we would otherwise not be able to pull off, quite frankly. So, for us, we are the example of that teamwork makes the dream work, so to speak.
That's right. Yeah, I would say, that can make or break your investing career, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I probably started off slower than I could have. I surely could have benefited more from this last market cycle just by going faster, by having the right people around me sooner. But it's a mindset shift, right? Like you have to be open to allowing the right people to be around you and open to allowing yourself to see that kind of success. Probably, I would say, if I can share a story, this is something that kind of changed my mindset. And it was right at the end of my W-2 career. We were taking down the biggest deal, the biggest multifamily deal that I've done to date. And we'd done the initial due diligence process in person. We flew out and we did the site walks and did the physical condition assessment and all that good stuff. But then final negotiations, acquisition, renovation, lease up, all of that stuff. I was traveling the world with my wife and 2 kids. And none of that would have been possible without the right team members there on site and on the general partnership side of things as well. So that whole experience was a huge mindset shift for me, that you can do way bigger deals than you think you can. And you just need to allow yourself to have have the right partners to be able to find that kind of success. So,
and you can do them while traveling around the world.
Yeah,
Like,
you might have to wake up in the middle of the night, but yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I had Susie Sevier and Michael Barnhart on, they bought an 88 unit, I believe, in Tulsa, and they live in Great Britain right now and did the entire thing remotely. Every aspect of it they did remotely, and it's the same exact thing that you just said. Having the right partners, having the right boots on the ground, and the right people on your power team, your attorneys, your title rep, your lenders, your capital partners, and having all those relationships really solidified and in place, and being ready to go like when deals come up, because this isn't the easiest market to buy in right now. It's pretty dang competitive, and you want to do yourself all the favors that you can in this market to make yourself stand out as a buyer. And so take me through kind of what your typical day looks like, Rusty, what your role is with your team, and what your superpower is.
Yeah. So I would say my superpower is, and this is something that I kind of fell into in my professional W-2 career as well, is generating a strategy, creating a tactical plan, and then helping that bridge to implementation. Not a lot of people can, be a project manager and do, the high level planning.
Visionary, and the logistical stuff.
It's two very different mindsets, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of bridge the gap between the two. Is like, okay, how can we actually get the rubber on the road and make this happen? Mm-hmm. So like we've been talking about, I'm just a huge fan of getting the right people around you. Where I fall in is, my background's in construction and facilities management. I did that for years growing up, and for my early professional career as well. And so I certainly lean that way. And, I know the buildings backwards and forwards, and just know what to look for, and how to fix those problems. So the finance side, I know enough, but we've got people that are stronger in that. Mm-hmm. Mine is more, okay, let's go through the due diligence and let's create a good plan for the ongoing operations of this asset. So I connect the right people into the right pieces, into the right places of these projects.
Yeah, that is a superpower in this sport for sure, because this is very much a project management sort of thing. There's hundreds and hundreds of moving parts, and when you're under contract and acquiring a place and going through due diligence and working with the lender and raising money, and man, there's a lot going on, and it's so cool that exactly. I ask you what your superpower, and boom, you know exactly what it is, how it works, how it's implemented, and what the strength it is to your team. And that's really awesome. You also know and noted what you're not necessarily don't necessarily have a superpower in finance, but you have proficiency there. But you also know that you've got the backing and the strength of great partners in your court that are really have the superpowers in finance, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that is again, listeners, knowing your superpower is so important, because once you know it, then number one, you can develop it and make it better and more expansive and make it more valuable to whoever you're offering it to. And number two, you can market it. Teams like my team, Rusty's team, lots of realtor teams, other real estate investors, flippers, wholesalers need good people with good skills that know who they are in the business sense and know what they can bring to the table and they can produce. And so again, knowing what it is that you're really good at, and often hopefully looks like what you also really like to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's key. Like, look, if you're not sure what your superpower is, look at what it is that you really like to do. Yeah. And, is it talking to people? Is it networking? Is it spreadsheeting and underwriting and researching rent comps? Is it graphic design and photography and videography? And those are skills that teams need, right? And some skills are going to be more valuable than others, for sure. And the most valuable skills, quite frankly, in the business are finding deals and finding dollars and
that's right.
Bringing them to the table. And that's, again, we talk about this all the time. And now I'm rambling, Rusty.
No, I think you're right, man. And to be honest with you, I think all of us could stumble through most of the steps, right? But it might take me 5 times what it would take someone else, right? And so I've learned through trial and error that I'm going to rely on someone else, that's their superpower, that's their specialty, and I'm gonna stick in my lane so that we can go further together.
Yeah, another thing Tim Brott says is he'd rather have a slice of a watermelon than all of a grape or something. That's right.
Yep.
But again, teamwork, right? Like, the 4 of us or the 3 of us or the 5 of us can do so much more than the individual efforts on their own. And if we're all working if we're all sitting in the right seat in the boat and paddling in the same direction with the same intention and the same goals, the collective talent of that group, ideally the collective resources of that group, the collective accountability of the group, the way that you guys can, and the way that my team, if you're not performing and you're missing, you're missing a piece and you're not bringing to the table that title report review that needed to happen, or a due diligence report review, or you're not ready to talk to an investor and stuff like that. It shows. Conversely, when everybody's in it to win it, and everybody's in it for each other and in it for your investors and for your residents, you can't lose, in my opinion.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah, it's all about, for us, it's all about investors and residents. If we're putting them first and putting their priorities, ahead of everybody else's, including ours, then hopefully we'll do everything right. Ideally.
Well, you'll certainly get closer anyhow and figure it out as you go.
Right. And the stuff we don't do right, we'll make right as best we can. I promise. We always.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. So let me ask you a question. I like doing this. Even if we were just hanging out at lunch, I'd ask you the same question. If you could wave a magic wand right now and have a great deal come up that you're just jacked about putting together and making work, what would that look like at this point?
Ooh, that's a great question. I like good, solid C+ assets that are in a good area, that have some room to move upward in the asset class, right? I'm so concerned about location. I mean, I've seen enough projects from, some people around me who have gone into an asset that was okay, but the area was not as good as the asset. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't go well, right? So I like to look at the location first and foremost, could I walk through here or live in this area with my family and feel okay with that? I think that's really, really important. But as far as the actual project itself, I would say, 50 plus or 100 plus doors on a multifamily project, heavy lift. with either some good JV partners, or we go forward with the syndication, bring in a bigger number of passive partners. I'd gobble that up all day long.
Yeah.
I know you're in Oklahoma City, and we've talked about this before. Oklahoma City is such a great location, and I think you're chasing up the right avenue there.
Barking up the right Oklahoma City tree.
That's right. It's such a good area, and there's good people and a good market. So I gobble one up down there like that all day long.
Yeah. Markets are key, and submarkets are key, and like being on the right side of the street sometimes is really.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You got to know these things, and so you got to like. We haven't talked about spending time in your market very much recently, but it's something that I'm just such a huge believer in. Rusty, you have a little more broad focus than a lot of us, I think, where, like green light's pretty much Columbus and Oklahoma City these days. And so for me, it's super key to go to those places as much as I can, to physically be there and to spend time at these assets at night and, at rush hour and just kind of hanging out and watching who comes and goes. And yeah, there's a lot you can learn.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You mentioned the night. I mean, walking around it during the day is good and important, obviously, but make sure you walk around it again at night, because places change, man. Places change.
Yeah.
So.
No doubt.
Good.
Cool. So 50 to 100 units. Do you have are you goal oriented? Do you set numeric goals and for you?
Yeah. I mean, I've got income goals, and then, my partners and I set a goal for 300 doors this year, and we're on track to hit that. These light industrial builds are just awesome as well, because they're so steady. They're almost like a multifamily for the commercial side of things, right? Mm-hmm. You've got a tenant, but you get triple net leases, right. Really flexible spaces, and low vacancy. It's just a great asset class to be in. And I certainly think that flex type light industrial space is kind of the way that our economy is going as well. So happy to bring that into the portfolio and be learning more about that asset class as we go.
Yeah, light industrial, flex industrial, some people call it flex industrial, with where you've got, a smallish warehouse space with maybe a single bay door for a truck and an office space. That's a flex industrial space. Guys, those are blowing up right now because of e-commerce. And
that's right.
Because of what COVID did for e-commerce. E-commerce was huge already, and then COVID put it on steroids. And now in places like Utah's very entrepreneurial and culture and by nature. And, the flex industrial spaces are in demand and are needed by people that are making products or distributing products and just need, an office and some warehouse space, and boom, good to go.
Yep.
So it's you see it everywhere. You see it being built everywhere. Like there's a lot of new flex industrial going up. Davis County is big. For those of you that
huge.
Don't know Utah, that's just north of Salt Lake City. And actually, I do want to just for a couple minutes geek out on Utah with you for a minute before we're totally done. Just because I so seldom get to have a Utah-based guest on the show with me. And I'm the organizer of the Salt Lake City Multifamily Meetup group. So we own property here. We own apartments in Davis County. I just mentioned north of Salt Lake City. And I'll honestly just say that I don't underwrite deals here very often at all. Like, I'll see deals come across my desk and they're all retail, and retail in Utah is like a 4.5 cap. and they're so expensive and you can't cash flow them. And a lot of times the value add's already been taken out of them. We are in an extreme supply demand crisis, if you will. Like the newspaper says, it's not a crisis, it's actually an emergency. The housing shortage here. And, you've got cranes everywhere. For those of you that aren't here, like you go through downtown right now and they're literally, the skyline is littered with cranes, mid-rise apartments being built everywhere. Utah County, northern Utah County, where Rusty is, blowing up because of the Silicon Slopes area, the phenomenon that's going on down there with a lot of tech companies coming in and really boosting the economy down there. And we literally can't build fast enough. We can't grow fast enough. Like, what do you think is, I mean, what do you think's this looks like over the next 20 years or so?
Oh man. For Utah, specifically the Wasatch Front.
Yeah.
That's tricky. I've talked to a lot of people that know a lot more than I do. Neither of us are natives here, right? But I've heard so often about how this Wasatch Front is kind of like a mini California, right? Like a mini SoCal, where you've got mountains on one side and you got the ocean on the other side. We just have mountains on both sides. Yeah. And, there's a finite amount of space that you can build in. Yeah. And there's so much infill going on right now. The only way that prices are going to be able to go is up. So I don't see this as a bubble, to be honest with you, at least here in Utah. Yeah. I think this is the new normal and it's just going to keep going up. And you're right. This is a very small business friendly state. We've got so many startups and e-commerce and all these other small businesses. Multi-level. Yeah, exactly. Multi-level is a huge thing here too, but it's just going to keep growing. and the sleepy Utah of 10 years ago is gone.
Yeah, no doubt. Our median house price, I just read this morning, went up $100,000 between May of 2020 and May of 2021.
That's right.
I mean, that is crazy. It was like, I think it's 20-ish% roughly. Yeah. Because we're at 450-ish is our median home price. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken. And look, 5 years ago, guys, it was half that. Like, 4 years ago, it was half that. And that's right. And people that are waiting, and I don't actually hear too many people that really do think this, but people that think that there's going to be a crash or a softening or they're waiting this market out. Like, I feel really badly for them, but I don't think it's going to necessarily work out real well for them. I unfortunately, I think in Utah, if you're buying for yourself or a home to live in, you buy what you can when you can. And then multifamily, like especially larger scale multifamily, is almost not really a thing because there's so little inventory in that asset class and that scale. And what there is, everybody wants, like, and for good reason. Like, you can buy this stuff for so much less than the replacement cost still, and you can still buy assets that you can get a really nice value add out of. You might not be able to cash flow it very well, but you can do the value add play all day long in Utah still. So that's what a lot of people do, is they'll buy expensive, they'll add value add and sell for more expensive. And yeah. And so and Rusty, I like the alignment that our philosophies have around going to places that just make sense, right? That you can look an investor in the eye and say, we are taking this capital and we're buying a profitable cash flowing business that happens to be a property that you can go touch and stand on, that that meets a universal need in housing, and is in our case, when you talk about a C+ unit, you're talking about average rent, say in let's say Oklahoma City, for instance, that's going to be a $600, $700 rent level, right? These are affordable, and we talk about them being recession resistant. Easy for me to say, because when a recession happens, there's compression on demand in Class C, Class B assets because people are downsizing. They're moving out of their house. Unfortunately, they're moving out of the Class A stuff, and they need a place to live. And rents hardly ever go down, even in deep recessions. And of course, that's all market dependent, sub-market dependent. So anyway, I'm fascinated by Utah. Not being from here, but I've lived here for 21 years and seeing the growth that we've had here during that time. And it really does feel like tip of the iceberg kind of stuff. And I think it's going to be all about infill development. Because like you say, you got mountains on either side and only so much land to build on. And, so yeah, we've got water issues. That's another whole conversation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But, anyway, but hopefully that gives listeners a little bit of insight into like how we invest and what we're looking for in our investments for our investors, right? Like for us, a Utah asset in general just doesn't meet our requirements because it's a losing proposition while you hold it. You're going to lose money generally, or you're going to barely break even and not be able to pay your investors back. So
that's right. Yeah. I think there's a price to rent ratio that kind of plays into this, right? Yeah. When I first got started investing, it was actually here when I had gone back to school, and it was, 2011, 2012 timeframe. And prices were great. You could buy cash flowing assets all day long. And so got started here, was like, okay, we can do this. Went up to Seattle for a few years, and that's a tough market. We got lucky enough to find a vacant foreclosure for our own, like kind of live-in house hack kind of thing, live-in flip more or less. And then came back down here hoping, I guess naively, that we could do more deals here and come back. And this place had just changed, the prices had doubled and the rents hadn't. And so, deals don't work great here. Often there are still deals to be had. And that's kind of where those new build infill type of deals work out pretty well. But yeah, just like what you said, bottom line is we go wherever the deal works, and the local market will support that kind of a deal.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Rusty, kind of start to wrap things up. What would you're a very wise guy. I can tell you're just, you're very intelligent, but you've also got a lot of experience, and you're a visionary like me. I can see that in you, and you're able to connect the dots well. What would you say to somebody that is looking at this business right now and is either in single family and thinking about getting into multifamily, or is maybe not even in single family yet, but is listening to the podcast and thinking about multifamily?
I would say very first step is to figure out your criteria, right? What do you want to invest in? And you can figure that out by being around other investors. So going to a local RIA, going to a local meetup. I helped put one on down here in Utah County as well. It's really important to just get around other people that are interested in this and just talk with each other and think through ideas and settle out, settle what that criteria really looks like for you, and then find the right partners. Whether you're an active partner or you're a passive partner, you've got to be around the right group. So that's where I would go.
Yeah. I think that's all awesome. I would add, maybe find a mentor too. Or somebody that you can learn from, whether that's like a guru mastermind sort of situation, or somebody that you're in a paid mentorship. Michael Blanc has a program like that, or somebody, maybe you're really good at finding deals. Like maybe you've been in the single family world and you're really good at finding deals. Like that actually does translate to the multifamily world. Maybe you're out finding deals and you're wrapping up deals or a deal, and you bring it to somebody like Rusty or me or another syndicator, and you're like, hey, got a good one here. What do you, or at least I think it's good. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can put it together, right? Like that stuff happens all the time. And that's, if you want the express lane to the owning apartments and being part of apartment ownership, that finding the deals is the fastest way. Finding good capital sources, whether it's your own or people or you're good at raising capital, is another very, very good way of being on the ownership structure of these deals.
Yeah. I think it's a huge bottleneck for everyone right now, is finding the right deal. So yeah, I mean, if anyone has deals that think might be a good deal, bring them to the right people that you would want to partner with. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the meantime, like think about talking to those people that you might want to partner with beforehand, even too. Like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm thinking about doing. Do you have any ideas, thoughts, suggestions? How can I contribute to you, right? You're always coming from a place of how can I serve? How can I contribute? And, how can I bring value to whoever I'm talking to at the moment? And in this case, it's you're talking to somebody like me that's a syndicator, or somebody like Rusty who's also a syndicator, and a developer. And just ask a lot of questions, right? Get into people's world. People like Rusty and I, and pretty much you go down the list of my podcast guests, we're all here to help you. Like really, we're thrilled when you reach out. And so reach out to me, reach out to Rusty. Rusty, again, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah, you could go to the website, propertieselevated.com, or feel free to send me an email directly. My email address is rusty@propertieselevated.com. Yeah, I think, just getting the right partners on board. You can never have a big enough network, and it's always great to have deals come across your desk as well. So let's chat.
Yeah. And quick random thought too. When you say you can never have a big enough network, that's so true. And these virtual network meetings, guys, are legit. They're real. Like people meet partners, they meet capital sources at these virtual meetups, these virtual hangouts. And again, you're cheating yourself if you're not meeting great quality people through those meetups. I'm happy to share the ones that I go to with you. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'll email you back. So Rusty, dude, thank you so much. This has been great. I love hanging out with you, and I love our chat and our jam, and I wish you all the best down south of me a little bit, 45 minutes south or so.
Yep.
But we're always here to help you any way we can. And I'm sure at some point we'll be doing deals together.
We will for sure. And thanks for letting me come on today, Tate. You're a stud. I will say your monthly meetup is awesome. I love the breakout rooms. It's really great. So nice work.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, Salt Lake City Multifamily Meetup listeners, every one of you is invited. So on that, listeners, have a great week, and we will catch you on the next Apartment Guys podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and Friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.